You're listening to the After the Show movie podcast brought to you by Ascully.com. And here are your hosts, Ascully and Cidtalk. Hello, Cidtalk.
Yellow.
Hello, world.
Can I help you?
We should do a speech like Winston Churchill there at the beginning. An inspiring
I could give you a speech. Is that what you really want?
Inspiring speech. We will fight them on the beaches.
I don't know if mine would be inspiring.
Go on.
I don't know. I have nothing prepared.
No, well, Winston didn't. Well, he did. Actually.
He did.
He prepared quite a bit.
From what we could tell from this fictionalized movie.
Yes. So, welcome to After the Show. Cidtalk, what was before the After the Show discussion?
You were testing your thing, which is this new stand that you got me for my microphone. I'm playing The Sims as usual. I'm working on my WordPress site thingy. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we have a special announcement to make. Cidtalk.com has returned from the grave.
Returned from the dead.
Yeah.
It's the zombie site. Oh, I wish. That'd be cool.
So you probably... Cidtalk.com...
It has nothing on it yet, but you can go there. Look at the front page.
It was missing for about, a month maybe?
Yeah, I didn't really miss it. And I don't know how much I'm going to enjoy it, but I ended up having... I don't know why. Oh, I do know why. I had like $100 in my PayPal account that I just keep forgetting about. So I'm like, okay, I'll buy a year's worth of domain and get my site back up.
That was like finding change down the back of the couch.
Well, not exactly, but...
It's like the digital version of finding change.
It's a lot of change, but I decided to put it to use.
So, yeah. So this is
Cidtalk.com will probably mostly be photographs and artwork, and then me just rambling on about shit. So if you like the tiny bit that I do on here, imagine what I do when it's just me and the keyboard.
Sounds like what it used to be like, which was also the same thing. Photographs, you rambling on, and artwork.
I need it to be a little more streamlined, probably.
All right, so if you like to listen to Cidtalk, well, not listen, if you like to go and look at her photography and look at her artwork, Cidtalk.com will be the place to go.
Correct.
But when you go there on Monday, when this podcast releases, if you do go, it probably won't be finished.
Correct. Also correct.
So you're listening to After the Show. We're a podcast. We review movies. And this is Saturday, February the 17th, After the Show number 518. This week, we are looking at the movie, Oscar-nominated movie, Darkest Hour. It's a 2017 movie. It releases on Blu-ray February the 27th. So we got this a little bit early to review. From our friends at Universal, and it's PG-13. It's out just before the Oscars, so you can see it before the Oscars come up. So, Darkest Hour, Cidtalk will give you the synopsis.
It's about the first month of Winston Churchill being Prime Minister in 1940.
Correct.
If I'm not mistaken. Okay, that's it.
Yes.
I mean, it is history. So you can look up all the details, but this particular movie takes that particular month, literally just the month of May, and that's it.
It's a busy month.
Yeah, no kidding. I said this is one busy month.
So Darkest Hour, not The Darkest Hour, which is a totally different film that I don't recommend, but Darkest Hour is obviously when the guy who sends me the movie reviews, discs for review, said, do you want to review The Darkest Hour? I said, well, I'm British, I have to, right? It's like part of and he was like, yep, you're on the list. So, Darkest Hour, part of my history, even though I wasn't around then, but my grandparents were. So, and Winston Churchill was my grandma's favourite.
Was she?
Yeah, she loved him.
He rallied the troops, for sure, and rallied the,
Yeah. So, Darkest Hour, Oscar nominated, 6 nominations, I believe. Cidtalk, what was your first, what do you think? What do you know about British history?
Probably about as much as you know about American history.
So that'd be nothing.
Can you name 20 American presidents?
No, but I can name 5 maybe?
Can you name 20 prime ministers?
No.
Right. So we're pretty even in what we do and don't know about each other's countries.
Can probably name 5 of each.
I think that a lot of people are still sort of delusional about what they know about the world. You live in a little bubble and you learn what somebody's decided you need to know. And so that's what I know about British history. Never really ever learned anything about, to me. Now, also I was a bad student, so keep that in mind, but nothing ever came to mind about England being bombed or about the rations or about being taken over by Germany. It was probably mentioned in history class once, and Allied forces and blah, blah, blah. It all just melded together for me, so it was never a thing. What we would have learned mostly would have been, sadly, after the fact, Holocaust, and when Pearl Harbor was bombed, and then America got in, and then when Truman bombed Japan. So it's not that we skip over it, and I'm sure loads of people learn it. I'm just a crappy student, but really no knowledge of the process or of, you hear the name Churchill and it's like, yeah, but what did he do again? Like I knew nothing of Dunkirk. We watched that one.
That was unbelievable to me.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, but I could name probably 1,000 things about American history and you'd be like, I don't know anything about that either. So, it's all kind of the same thing.
Actually, American, it's the same both ways. We didn't learn much about American history, maybe a little bit, but we obviously learned about Britain's role in history a lot. And in American students,
you'd also have learned just the skewed version as well. Like your government doesn't teach, your school doesn't teach you the dark stuff. It teaches you about how Winston Churchill rallied the British people and saved the men at Dunkirk and then faced off against Hitler and, but did you know he was an alcoholic and he was slightly demented and he was like abusive to people and all that kind of stuff? Probably not. They don't tell you that when you're in 5th grade.
No.
They just tell you that your grandma and grandpa remember listening to him on the radio and he was a great man. And here are his accomplishments.
Period. So, on to the film Darkest Hour. What's your thoughts on this?
There's nothing I would change. I was completely along for the whole of it. I was enthralled by the look, the pace, the people, the performances, the dialogue, the vibe, and I'm not one to advocate learning history through fiction. However, it can tip on a few points where you're like, I'm looking that up. I'm going to look that up. Oh, I'm going to look that up. And I was just in it. Like you got up once to go pee and I thought, I don't even think my brain will let my body want to go pee because we're staying put. I'm saying right here until the end. So I thought that was really enthralling.
How do you what do you think about it being Oscar nominated? Gary Oldman.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think
that's totally fair.
So this is like we said earlier, the story of the first month of Winston Churchill. So you don't get his whole. It's not like a biopic on Winston Churchill. It cuts to the chase pretty quick, and then spends this first month. So you don't get to see like how he handled the bombing, the Blitz and all that kind of stuff. Right.
I said all of that happened after this movie takes place.
Yeah, literally like in the following 2 or 3 years after he does the rousing, we'll fight them on the beaches speech. But you get to see up to the point where he does the fight them on the beaches speech, and then the movie ends. So it's not I said to you, like, there's 2 movies in the Oscars this year. You've got this, Darkest Hour, and you've got Dunkirk, and they're almost like companion movies because they take place in the same year, and they both tackle the same subject, but from different sides. This is the politician's view of everything, and that one's the men in the trenches. So it's interesting that they both came out in the same year. Did you know there's another Churchill film that came out this year?
No.
It's called Churchill, and it was completely overshadowed by this one. Not many people saw it. Just went under the radar completely because this one got so much attention.
Who was it?
I can't remember, but it might be Michael Sheen who's in it. Just called Churchill. So have a look that one up. I don't think many people saw it, but 3 movies concerning Winston Churchill's, reign there. So this movie, Darkest Hour, takes you through that first month. And like we said when we were watching it, a lot happens in that month. And I feel that it's not, again, this is fiction, this movie. It's not all based on fact. I looked a few things up. Winston Churchill never went in the subway.
I didn't think so.
No, it didn't happen. But similar things did happen, right? There's a bit in this movie, I mean, this is a historical movie. I can't spoil anything, really. It's a bit in this movie where Winston Churchill decides, I need to hear the voice of the people. So he kind of escapes and goes on the subway and speaks to some regular people to see what their opinion of the war is. Now, that did not happen in real life, but historians said that he did go outside where the Houses of Parliament goes out onto the road, and he often was stood speaking to people. So I think they've took that, which doesn't seem that interesting, and made it more interesting and dramatic, right, for the movie.
Right.
It's a bit like Hollywood-ish, the way it happens in the movie. It's very, romanticized and everything.
I still wouldn't change it, because I felt like it was... It spoke to what... I don't know. It
spoke to his spirit, because he did do that kind of thing, just not quite as contained as that. It said over the whole period of him being in Parliament, he would often just go outside to chat to people. And many people talked to him on the street, and it was not, out of the ordinary for the Prime Minister just to appear on the street and people be talking to him. Like nowadays, it doesn't really happen, does it? Because they get mobbed.
Yeah.
So, but back then, he could go out and talk to people. So this kind of, it doesn't really, it touches on this month and how stressful this whole month is because, Darkest Hour is the name of the movie. And during this month, Hitler was running riot across Europe, and Britain was about to be invaded, really close.
All indications led to that conclusion. Right. I mean, you couldn't read his mind, but it seemed imminent, as they like to use that word.
Yeah, there's a scene in the movie where Churchill goes to the toilet, and he speaks to the American president on the phone in the toilet, and you can see he's asking for a favor from the American president that it's not actually getting a favor back, is he? But you can, that whole thing on his face there where he's like, actually, we're done. This is, if you don't help us, I don't think we're going to win anything. I think we're going to, what did he say? He said it's the darkest hour. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was really grim. It wasn't all roses. This movie ends, and then obviously, Hitler bombs the crap out of Britain. And, it's touch and go for 2 years there where Britain was just being assaulted by Nazi Germany and trying to hold it off with little resources. They were picking up... The Nazi thing was crazy, though, wasn't it? It kind of went across Europe and it started picking up Europe, other armies joining their army. It just started to get giant.
It just seems impossible, when you think of all that, how it's just...
And Britain sat there on this little island thinking, nobody can touch us. We're a Commonwealth and all that stuff, but it was pretty close to the end there of Britain. It could have been part of Germany.
Again, perception. It seemed imminent. No one could tell the future, but it seemed pretty bleak.
The thing that's most terrifying to me about war stories, coming from Britain, and these stories, my grandparents, my granddad was in the war, and my grandma was she sewed in the war, uniforms and stuff. And they were being bombed at night, and then they were working in the things. It's just, you can't even imagine those conditions today, can you? It happening.
Yeah, you can, because it happens all the time. There are lots of people
in England, or I couldn't imagine living in England or living in America even, and thinking that would be your everyday life. Terrified, people invading you.
I guess I do think about it because people do live that way, unfortunately, in the world all over.
They do, but
and it doesn't any different that it's England or America or Canada or Afghanistan or
But we're very... I mean, yes, we've had things like 9/11 where you feel like you've been invaded, right?
Absolutely.
But, the Blitz, for instance, where they're literally bombing houses and just... They're not, picking military targets. They're just they're just killing people every night. Without fail, during the Blitz, it went dark, and then, stories from my granddad, the bombs started to come. Like, you could hear them as it went dark, and here come the bombs, like, night after night after night, which is, I can't even comprehend that, and how terrifying it must have been for people. And, this story, Darkest Hour, is how this man, he was kind of a not back down kind of guy, because a lot of the government were actually wanting to just like make a deal with Hitler. What was this deal exactly?
They didn't know yet. I don't think they got that far,
No,
but it's just like anything throughout history that the country that's being attacked or invaded at some point, I guess there are rules about this shit, which is really insane. It's like insane to think there are rules to war and dominating another country, but you give them the chance to say, okay, you know what, you can gobble us up
and
into your empire, and we want this, and this, and you will honor these rules, and we will comply with your rules, just don't destroy us. So now we're giving up. Basically, you're surrendering, and these are your rules of surrender, your conditions of surrender. And, I mean, it's always happened. I think that's just how men have worked out this whole game, which is it's so freaky when you think about it, that there's a system for that, right? A system for war. It's like it doesn't even make sense, right? But that's the point he was up to, but he was never on board with it. You could tell from the movie. I don't know about him personally, but there was never this it was more like, whoa, what have I signed up for? Maybe I'm supposed to do that in the interest of everyone instead of me just forwarding my own, what I would want as a citizen.
Yeah.
That's what the whole subway scene was about, was going down there and talking to the citizens and then being like, this is what they want.
Because I think even he was thinking at that point was, am I out of touch here? I need to know what they think. Not,
exactly.
Everybody in my cabinet and in this war room are telling me that we should all, go and at least listen to this guy, Hitler, and see what this, truce or whatever it is. But he just kept, I think he was just like, is that the British spirit? Is that what we do? Do we just say, oh, come and get us then?
Well, what's really better in the interest of being a nation is the question.
And there isn't, you either, you're giving up a nation, aren't you?
I mean, not necessarily, because you don't know the terms of the surrender, but you are giving up something, and you don't, what are you really fighting for? Do you want to just go through your life with your head down and, subjugated to someone else's design, which is what we all do. We were born into our countries. We didn't make the rules. But we follow them and we take them on board and we take on the, hurrah, I'm British, hurrah, I'm American, hurrah, I'm Mexican, whatever it is. You comply. You haven't signed an agreement. You haven't decided. You've grown into it and depending on your surroundings and your circumstance and what other people have taught you, you just take it on board. And I think when someone, even though you didn't choose it and someone tries to take that away, like that sort of intangible identity, then it's like we all will say no, defend it. And that's what this movie to me was about, was do you just lay down and let it happen, or do you, obviously you're sacrificing a lot of people in the process. The act of defiance comes with a huge price. Obviously, for 5 years after this, like you said, the Blitz and the bombing and the rationing and the deaths and the soldier. I mean, it seems it's immeasurable.
Yeah.
But that's the cost, one of the costs of not laying down, not giving in to the bully, right? The bully might be coming in every day and taking your lunch money, punching you in the face. But if you never just give in, you're going to pay a price.
What I really was impressed with of this film, it reminded me a lot of The King's Speech, the way it was put together. Mm-hmm. It had that kind of production design to it, and the way the camera work was. It's almost like it's not grand and epic at all. It's kind of small and confined, but it works for the movie. Now, this isn't an action movie. It's not like Dunkirk. It's not full of battles. But there are some scenes where the camera zooms right out and you kind of see a battle from above. or you see like a plane flying over it, which is quite cool. I thought like a cool way of doing it, because this movie's focused on political chat, really, and the war room and the Houses of Parliament. It's not a battle movie, even though there is Dunkirk going on at the same time. You don't get to see Dunkirk. If you want to see Dunkirk, go and see that other film. But you do see a lot about. I feel like I know the kind of man Winston Churchill was before this. I've seen a lot of things about him, the real guy. But I feel like this movie really does, if you're a person who doesn't really know a lot about British history, I feel like it does kind of, what do you call it, like break it down into like the essence of Winston Churchill. It's a very small piece of him, but you get to know him pretty quickly. What I was surprised about as well is it's got quite a sense of humour, this film. It's not like straight and stuffy and, like The King's Speech, which also had a sense of humour. It's quite funny, the script. There's a lot of funny lines from Winston Churchill. And there's a lot of, he didn't take himself too seriously a lot. And that showed through too. And I love the relationship between him and his wife.
Yeah, very good.
Which, it's like, to me, this is how it felt. He was like on the edge of like just falling apart. And she was the one who, she just needs to come to him and tell him what to do, or tell him, like, think about this. And that puts him back on the straight and narrow for a little bit. Not saying that this movie paints him to be like a horrible, but I guess it, at the beginning. She
said at one point, these battles you fight internally have led you to this. So which means he has a lot of emotional or just difficulties coping inside. So there's some challenges there, and I think that's what we're alluding to, that she just reminds him that it doesn't make you less. In fact, you have a different perspective than all these other people. So, I mean, she was really good. Is she up for an award? That lady? Okay.
Yeah. Kristen Scott. Yeah, I've always loved her. Again, Bitter Moon, one of my favourite movies. She's awesome in that movie. Cidtalk, did you like Bitter Moon?
Which one was it?
It was Kristen Scott Thomas and Hugh Grant and John Hurt on the cruise liner. John Hurt's telling the story of his relationship with this sexy French lady.
Oh my God, I don't even remember it.
It's an awesome movie. It's you should look it up. It's from a long time, early 90s, I would say. I
don't even remember it. I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember.
It's Roman Polanski, the director.
Okay.
It's just a really awesome movie, and that was the first Kristen Scott Thomas movie I'd ever seen. I'm a big fan of hers. I think she's awesome. She's very actorly. She's one of those like serious actor people. But I thought she was great in this, and she's not in it a lot, but she really grounded like Winston Churchill a lot.
Absolutely.
Every time she was on that scene, there's one scene where where you see him for actually who he is, like his real person inside him. It's
like looking at an elderly person who's got dementia sitting on the edge of their bed with a blank look on their face. Like, I just don't even know where I am. That was the moment she came in and she's like, the king's coming in to talk to you, so snap out of it.
the one I'm talking about was where she's kind of pissed off with him and he goes and sits down and kind of gives her the charm, smiles at her, and then she immediately like goes, oh yeah, that's Winston, So yeah, I think this paints a good picture of Winston Churchill. It doesn't go into the dark, even though it's called Darkest Hour. You don't really see the dark side of him. It kind of paints him up as a hero.
I don't think that's what it meant.
No, it doesn't mean that. The Darkest Hour is just the Blitz and all that sort of stuff, right? So,
well, the Darkest Hour before, like the Darkest Hour would have been To Surrender.
Yeah,
I believe.
But this movie is more, even though it deals with a horrible time, it's a bit more uplifting than that. It's about how this guy, how the people of Britain were all like, what's going on? We're not getting much communication. Are we going to die? I mean, that's how you must have felt on the streets, right? Like living in Britain. Is this it? Are we done? And how this guy, with his truthfulness, inspired people.
Well, his lies.
Some lies.
He lied first to them.
And then, changed his... Now, I thought it was well played out. I like the cinematography a lot. It's a lot of really dim British rooms and like stately places, obviously the palace. But really cool lighting, I thought, like natural light stuff. And the war room that, whenever there's a war, the Prime Minister and all the generals and everybody, they don't just sit in a building waiting to be bombed. They go underground into a shelter. And I'm sure it's the same here. Presidential underground shelter.
Probably, yeah.
And they, are safe from harm down there, and they still can carry out all the orders. So a lot of this movie takes place in the war shelter place. And I really like that set. It felt really cool. Like, obviously it's a set, but it was really very authentic looking to me. What did you think of all the...
No, it looked amazing. All of it. I was, like I said, I was in it, Now,
this movie, Gary Oldman, we'll go on to the cast here. Gary Oldman plays Winston Churchill. I said to you, this is some next level acting for me. I was like astounded by it the entire time. Gary, there's some prosthetics on his face, like Wonder last week. It's not the same thing though. See, Gary Oldman at the age that he is at is very close to the age Winston Churchill was in this movie.
Is he?
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 years difference. So it's not like this. It's not like this makeup's like aging makeup, because Gary Oldman's already like getting on a bit. It's more like transformation makeup. Like the shape of him is different.
Definitely the shape of him.
Yeah, the shape of his head is different because of the Now, did you think of the prosthetics all the time? Was it
sometimes, but not most of the time? No.
No, it's. I thought it was. It's getting better, isn't it? This makeup thing where they transform people. Like 5 years ago, maybe it was There was movies like this where they tried to transform, and you're looking at it and you're like, oh, it looks like rubber face. It's really terrible.
Yeah.
But now it's just getting better and better. And like I said to you, this version of Winston Churchill that Gary Oldman plays, he's not quite as fat as the real Winston Churchill. But I am glad they went more to like just put a little bit of bulk on Gary Oldman's frame. I don't think he put weight on for this movie, did he? It's in the clothes, right?
Yeah.
If they'd have made him look Winston Churchill fat, it would have looked silly, like fat suit silly. And it doesn't. He actually looks right, the proportion of him and everything. So I thought it was fantastic. But the actual performance of Gary Oldman, and you can see Gary Oldman, you can see his eyes and everything, it is incredible, I think. He's like, I've always thought he was a good actor. And he is, right? I mean, we've seen him in a lot of things where he's good. But I think this is the best role I've seen him in. What about you?
Don't know about the best, but it's transformative for sure. He even said he always wanted to say those speeches. So as a person, he wanted to say them. And now he can put on the outfit, put on the, and make it like almost like a dream come true for a dude. And I think that he pulled that part off.
Yeah, and he is up for Best Actor for this. And if he got it, I wouldn't be surprised, because it is very, it's a person who really has thrown everything into it. Like, he's not playing about, he is playing about because he's acting, I guess, but he's serious. He is Winston Churchill. He's transformed himself. And when he's doing the speech at the end, the rousing speech in the Houses of Parliament, it made me feel like glad to be British kind of thing. You know what I mean? It was like wow, this guy. Like
this guy.
I don't mean Gary Oldman. I mean Winston Churchill. And I'd forgot about Gary Oldman, so I think he was doing a good job as Winston Churchill. So yes, top marks from me. There was not a moment where I was like, oh, this is a bit hokey, and I don't want to see the rubber mask, or oh, he's not playing it right. It was just always right for me. Kristen Scott Thomas plays Clemmy, his wife. We mentioned her earlier. What did you think? Awesome.
Like, truly. Like I said afterwards, she got nominated, right? Because she totally deserved it.
She's, she's been around for a long time. She's a brilliant actress anyway. But what it is with this one, she's not in it a lot, to be honest. She's probably
enough to make a huge impact to me.
that's what I mean. She's not in it a lot. Maybe 5 minutes in the whole movie, if you added it up, because she's only in like small scenes. But she makes a huge, like, it's like, oh, I remember her when she's not even on the screen. I'm like, oh yeah, she's the woman behind this guy. Mm-hmm. And this guy is not Winston Churchill without her. Ben Mendelsohn plays the king, Mr. King George, who, the king's speech, that king. What do you think of Ben as the king?
He was really good.
Australian. Ben Mendelsohn's Australian, but he did a good job as the British king, right?
And he didn't overdo what we all know that king had like a speech. It's actually the Queen's father.
Yeah.
So if you ever, the Queen now, it's her father, and he was the guy in the King's Speech who has a speech problem, like a stutter, speech impediment. And I think he did that with just enough control where it wasn't like, oh, that's the stuttering king. It was just every so often. And it showed you the kind of position that system puts the king and the prime minister in. I don't know what a king could do. He just made him prime minister, right? So that's unusual to us. Well, it's not, because they get voted in.
I mean, that's how it works if there's that hung parliament thing and they have to make a decision.
Right. So that was kind of interesting, but I think I was convinced he was the king.
That thing is a thing as well, where he has to walk into the room with the king and kiss his hand.
Yeah.
Even if the queen, that is a weird tradition. It just seemed awkward. It seemed, where you're not allowed to have your back to the king either.
Until you get out of the room.
Until you get out of the room. There's all weird protocol in the palace. But yeah, it's I really love the scene where the king actually came to Winston Churchill's house.
That's my favorite scene.
And he's like,
he's accepted that this guy is not going to win the favor of everybody who's these standard politicians who just want to save their own ass, and they're too afraid to make a decision that's going to be disastrous no matter what happens. By choosing to go to war, you are signing the death certificate of thousands of people and misery for however long it takes. And he just realizes this is the guy who has to do it, because none of these other dudes are going to do it, and I don't know what else to do. So he kind of, succumbed to the charm of the Churchill.
It really sucks to be like the prime minister or the president during wartime, because
I think it sucks every day.
Well, during wartime though, whatever happens, if it's really bad and lots of British die, then those people blame you.
I'd say even if one person dies while you're president or prime minister, it is ultimately your decisions that make it happen. So very stressful. If
it turns out good, you're a hero. I liked how this movie covered the V sign, which you'll have seen lots of.
That must have been a real thing.
It was. You've seen the pictures of Winston Churchill doing the V sign, right?
No.
I mean, that was propaganda. A lot of the propaganda in the war was Churchill doing the V sign.
No, I mean the one where he got it wrong.
That's true also. That's where it came from.
Right. That's funny.
Yeah, in the movie, he puts the V sign up the wrong way, and in Britain, that actually means something different to victory.
Doesn't mean F you. It doesn't mean what she said it means.
No, she was being a bit more polite.
Right.
It actually means F you, but what did she say? Up your bum.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
it's the same as flipping the bird.
Yeah, exactly that. So, and he did that to a photographer.
Not knowing what it meant.
No, really, to say victory. Like,
yes.
We're going to victory. But, it made him look like, this guy is giving us the finger.
He's rough.
So, next up, Lily James is Elizabeth Layton. Now, Lily James we saw in Baby Driver just recently. And I really like her.
Yeah,
she was excellent in
good.
Baby Driver. And in this, she is Winston Churchill's secretary. She types his speeches. And it's really from her point of view quite a lot. Actually, at the beginning, when we first meet Winston, it's when she has to go and meet him. Well, she has to go into his bedroom while he's doing a speech, and she has to type it up. And he kind of comes across as an asshole right at the beginning. And you're like,
yeah, definitely.
And you're like, how can I like this guy? And then his wife comes and says, look, you're not being kind to people. And he kind of switches his attitude. Like, that's how much of an influence she was on him.
Yeah.
So, Lily James, excellent, I thought. Really, really. She has been in quite a lot of period British stuff. But she's really good. She's talented.
So that was really good.
This is directed by Joe Wright. He also directed Atonement, which is another period piece. Pride and Prejudice, you all know that one. And Hannah, which is a fantastic movie. Everybody should see Hannah by Joe Wright.
It's really good.
Yeah, really, really fantastic. In fact,
I keep saying really good, but I don't know what other, adjectives to use for things except when they're good. Just watch it and decide for yourself.
Hannah is, they're making a HBO TV series of it coming up. So I'll be interested to see that because it was an excellent movie. And it's got more to explore. It's like what is it like? There's another movie that it's like that we watched.
What do you mean? It's got like genetic engineering and stuff, and then the conspiracy of the people and whether or not it's right to use humans as weapons and all that jazz.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So, Joe Wright is Hannah is very different to Darkest Hour, though. So he has got some...
Very different, yeah.
Yeah, he's got scope. He can do different stuff because they're very different. And like Pride and Prejudice, again, is another very different thing. So, yeah, I liked how this was directed. It had a style.
It had a style, but not like a signature style.
It's not a show-off style, is it? It's like there's a style to it. And like I say, it felt claustrophobic to me. Like you're always trapped somewhere. And then any of the action scenes or the part where he's on the train or whatever, they had their own style where the camera kept pulling up into the air and looking from above. But I think it fit the movie. It was really good, the lighting and everything. So extras on the Blu-ray, and this has kind of been rushed out to get... the award season is upon us. So there are very little in the way of extras, which is a shame because I would have liked to seen Gary Oldman getting the makeup put on him and stuff, but you don't actually get that. So there's Into Darkest Hour, there's Gary Oldman becoming Churchill, and there's a feature commentary. The becoming Churchill part is good because it does interview Gary Oldman and he talks about how he got prepared to do it. I was just reading something about this movie and he said he took a year of research, he did research on, he spent a whole year researching it, in depth, and learning the speeches off by heart, so he didn't have to, look at cue cards and stuff. So, he did a lot of speeches, Winston Churchill, not just the few that you hear in this movie. And I imagine Gary's pretty intense. He probably learned all of them.
Seems intense, yeah.
So, those are the extras on this Blu-ray disc, which is out in about a week. You can pick it up. So, conclusion on Darkest Hour. What do you think? Is it going to win the Best Picture?
I gave it a 10.
Oh, a 10.
Because there's nothing I would change. And nothing. And I was there was nothing that even once drew my attention away except for when you paused to go pee.
Let me ask you, when, you always have a things. Before you watch the movie, you're like, oh, I'm dreading this movie, or I like this movie, or whatever. Well,
I was neutral.
Neutral?
Yeah.
See, I was actually anticipating it because I do like a bit of British history.
But to be fair, I'd be neutral if it was a movie about, Harry S. Truman. So I understand the balance between watching a biopic, a fictional telling of a true story, a completely fictional version of a true story, alternate realities of true stories in history and all that stuff. So a movie about a real thing is always going to be mostly bullshit with peppered in, bits of truth because you're going to be able to go look that up and prove it right or wrong or whatever. So unless it's I look more forward to fiction than I do retelling of history.
Right.
Just for that.
So, thanks to Universal. I'm sure this movie it's up for 6 Oscars. I'm sure it will get something because it is high quality and that performance by Gary Oldman is fantastic. So hopefully he gets something. So thanks to Universal. Next week's Blu-ray review, we're looking at another Oscar-nominated movie, The Florida Project, starring Willem Dafoe. He's up for supporting actor for that because the actress in it is up for the best, the main actress. So, we'll look at The Florida Project next week. Movie recommendations, I am going on the theme of Darkest Hour. And my first one is The King's Speech, which is another fantastic movie about British history that you should see if you're interested in us Brits. And my second one is a historic movie by Clint Eastwood called J. Edgar, starring Mr. Who's it starring? Jack from Titanic.
Mm-hmm. That's him.
If you can hear a dog barking, I am sorry about that, but nothing I can do
Don't
about
apologize. It's just life. It's just life happening.
it. So I went with British history and with some American history, and J. Edgar. I knew nothing about J. Edgar, and I really enjoyed that movie. Like, I know it's not like the whole story of J. Edgar.
No.
But as a movie, I thought it was really, really entertaining, like this one was. So those are mine, The King's Speech and J. Edgar. And yours are?
Mine are The Constant Gardener.
Is that a gardening movie?
It is, not really. I mean, if you watch it, you'll find out. But it's one of those where I remember just being like sucked into the story. And it's a kind of story where it has Rachel Weisz and is it Fiennes?
Yeah, I think so.
Ralph
I can't remember what the movie was about though.
I think they were in Africa and she was like an activist. And there's this thing about whether or not, when they were saying they were giving vaccinations to women and to the people of these, sort of impoverished areas, were they actually giving them birth things that would make them sterile?
Now I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was an advocate against that. It was about like the danger of it all, kind of reminded me also of Salvador, which was really horrible. Like nuns in the middle of the war that became like a horrible victim of it all. And what was the one about the lady in Ireland, the reporter?
Oh yeah, that was good.
Yeah, where, just trying to get the truth or do the thing is deadly, really. But Constant Gardener and Milk, because Milk is also sort of a biopic about a real life event and about, homosexual equal rights in America. Sean Penn, really good. It's got a different kind of vibe, but again, like you're learning, but you're entertained. It's got that style that isn't like it's not a documentary, but it was really good.
All right, so games and Ascully stuff for this week. I have been playing 3 new VR games. My first one is games on any headset. And Lone Echo is I think it's like the highest budget VR game to date, because Facebook, who own Oculus, they've got plenty of money to invest into big games. So Lone Echo is like a showcase for VR. I said to you yesterday, this is the most incredible thing I've seen in VR. Did you watch any of it? I was stood behind you playing it, but you don't see what I'm seeing. No,
not always. No.
Did you see on the screen any of it?
A little.
So Lone Echo is the story of... There's a mining space station in space, obviously, and it's run by like one astronaut. She's up there. She's on her own, and she looks after the space station. The mining does itself. Like she doesn't have to go to work every day and do the mining. She just has to make sure the space station is good. And you play her sidekick on the station. It's in the future. You're an AI robot, and not only are you programmed to like fix things around the space station, you're also programmed to be a companion to her, so she doesn't go crazy on her own. So you actually act human. You can talk to her, and you keep her sane basically because she's up there for a long time. So game starts, and it's in VR. And it's very realistic. It looks awesome, like really like you're in a space station. Like there's zero gravity, so the whole like thing is you're grabbing hold of things in VR and you're pulling yourself along. That's how astronauts move around space stations. So the thing is, it's very narrative based. She talks to you all the time. It's like a really huge story going on. So starts off, you go in there. You've been in there with her this whole time. She says, this is my last week on the station. They're coming to get me. And what they're going to do is they've decided that, they don't want a human here anymore. They're just going to leave it to you. And you as the droid. She's give you the name Jack. You're not really Jack. You're called Echo 1. You're just a droid, And she's going, and you're going to be in charge of the space station when she's gone. And that's it. They're just going to leave it to a droid. So... as this droid, you've developed some feelings towards her. Not feelings towards her, but you can tell that the droid is not going to be keen on her leaving. Like, he's actually started to rely on her as much as she is on him. So you're doing your business, and most of the game consists of you as this droid. And you're a human-looking droid. I mean, you don't look like a human, you look like a robot, but you've got legs and arms. And the game consists of you repairing, like, small repair jobs around the station. Like, I had to climb up to a thing and weld something back together that had snapped. I had to go to the hydroponics room and, like, solve a couple of puzzles. Well, they're presented to you as puzzles, but they're not really puzzles. It's like, the hydroponic system's broke, so you go on the panel and you have to dial in a load of stuff until it's all right, and then the water starts coming out. So it's mostly like, it's not an action game. It's not like you're going to be shooting anything or fighting anything. You're doing these repairs, you're talking to her, and she's giving you the story, basically. The story's unfolding through her. And what happens at the beginning is you're doing your stuff, day-to-day work, and then you're looking out the window, and she's saying how awesome the view is and how she's going to miss it. And then there's something in the distance that you can't really tell what it is. They call it an anomaly, which is what it is. It's like a weird blob in space that's moving. And then the mystery starts to be, we've got to fix up this station, but what is that over there? Like, there's something. I don't know what it is yet because I've not got far enough. But the mystery is, there's something here that is not just us. So, if that sounds interesting to you, it's a very cool sci-fi. What it felt like to me, and I'm being completely, it's like being inside a sci-fi movie. The graphics are so good, everything's so detailed, and the way she talks to you, it feels like you're actually talking to somebody. You can reply to her, and you have a list of choices like in a Telltale game. So you can be really nasty to her, or you can be sarcastic, or you can be funny, or you can support her, or you can just be like blank, say nothing. But it's that kind of game. It's like a Telltale game where there's this story going on that you're shaping. And it's also this cool locomotion of like the way you're moving through the spaceship, you're grabbing things and you're pulling, and then because it's anti-gravity, zero gravity, you're floating. And you can guide the floating by like grabbing stuff. One of the things that, like, sometimes in VR, I forget that the real world is there. And this game did it to me a couple of times. I floated up to there's a panel on the wall that I had to fix. And obviously you're in zero gravity, so you float. So if you don't hold on to something, you'll keep floating. So I got up to the panel, and I've got both hands in the air. So I'm floating in front of the panel. And I got out my welding torch and started to weld. And as I started to weld it, I started to float backwards because of the like inertia from the thing pushing me backwards. Then I was like, oh yeah, you have to hold with one hand and do the welding with the others like you would in real life, otherwise you'd float away. That kind of got into my mind. And then I was like, that's like second nature now. Like every time I'm floating around, I'm like, okay, I need to stabilize myself like a real astronaut would have to. Okay, I'm going to stop here to talk to her. But if I don't hold on to something, I'll by the time the conversation's over, I'll be over the other side of the room because, like, you just start to float away. So it's got this cool, the way they handle anti-gravity or zero gravity, it doesn't make you feel like you're going to be sick or anything because you're controlling it. Like, you're always grabbing something and stabilizing yourself. It's just the coolest way I've seen it done in a game. And I can't wait to find out what happens. It's just a cool game. And I think anybody could play it because it's not very gamey. It's not like you have to learn a load of stuff. It's very like easy to figure out. You float up to a thing and then you solve a puzzle. Because most of these jobs that they give you are actually puzzles, video game puzzles. And they're kind of fun to work out as well. So that is Lone Echo. It's on the Oculus Rift. And it's highly recommended. It's easily the most impressive thing I've seen inside VR. The graphics are they're way above anything else. It actually looks like you're really in a space station. Now, the other VR game I've been playing is Sprint Vector, which you've seen some of this week. You've not seen me play it, but you've seen other people playing it, right?
A little bit.
It's I
don't find it as interesting as you all do, but
It's called Sprint Vector. It's the first VR sports game, I would say. Like, well, there have been some sports games like ping pong and tennis and stuff. But this is, it's like, well, you're actually on like rollerblades. It's kind of futuristic-y. But to control yourself, how it normally works in these kind of racing games, rollerblade or skateboard or whatever, is you push your stick forward and you go. And that seems a bit weird in VR. Sometimes that can make you feel sick because you're not actually physically doing anything. You're just pushing a stick forward, and inside VR, you're moving really fast. It's kind of weird. But how this game gets around that is you actually run on the spot. Well, you don't run on the spot. You keep your legs still, and you move your arms like you're running. And the faster you move your arms like you're running, because you've got the wands in your hands and it knows how fast they're moving, is how fast your character runs in the game. And it's first person, like you're running down a track. And the track's fantastical. It's not just like you're going down a straight track. It's got like crazy like speed boost things, and like, you can jump over things. You jump by like holding onto your wand triggers and putting your arms down really fast, like you're jumping in the air. So, it's what you've seen, Cidtalk, the bit you've seen on YouTube, that one course. Mm-hmm. That's not actually the real game. That's just like a practice mode kind of thing. The real game, it's actually you're racing against other people like SSX. They're all characters, like crazy characters like that talk to you. But it's an actual race. There's 6 people and you all race each other. It's called Sprint Vector. It's very, very tiring. Like if you want some exercise while you're inside VR, moving your arms like that will give you a workout. After about 20 minutes, you feel like you're sweating, So it's called Sprint Vector. It's really cool. And the third one I've been playing in VR, which you would probably like, Cidtalk, because it's very similar to Tetris, but inside VR. And it's called Super Hypercube. And you know that like game show where you have to fit through a hole in the wall? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
What is it called?
I don't know. I don't know the name of it. It's like a hole, and then you have to bend your body.
Yeah. Well, it's like that, but it's not your body. So you just sat down. There's a hole in the wall, like down, like you can see down a tunnel. And at the end of the tunnel, because it's in 3D, there's a hole in the wall. And what you've got right in front of you is a block. And you can rotate the block, and you can also you can turn it either way, all the way around. And you've got to line it up so it goes in the hole. And then you press you down on your controller, and it shoots down the hole and goes through it. And then the next one, it gets a bit more complicated. The shape, it keeps getting bigger, and the hole getting smaller, and you've got to line it all up. Do you get what I'm saying? And you've got to eventually it gets so complicated, like you think that can't even fit through that hole, but it can when you get it just the right way. So it's like that game, whatever that game is, Wipeout, I think it might be called.
Maybe.
And it's also like Tetris, because the block is very Tetris-like, that you have to get through the hole. It's very difficult. I think I've managed 10. Maybe you can do better, Cidtalk. I'll give you a go on it. It's real easy. It's just one where you sit down and you can see the hole and you can see the shape and you move it around, So yeah, that's Super Hypercube. It's actually on sale on Steam at the moment. It's like $3. So pick it up. So Cidtalk, what is for dinner?
Tonight we're going to have some soup, macaroni and cheese, probably make you some beans on toast. Pretty basic stuff.
Nice.
I wasn't fully prepared.
I
went out of town for a couple of days to roam around my home county and ask people for money for my mother's historical society.
You sounded like I just went out begging.
Like for myself. My mother's injured, and she couldn't do her rounds for her little charity thing. I shouldn't say little charity thing, but she's the president of the historical society for the county that I'm from. And last year on Valentine's Day, because Valentine's Day is the anniversary of the day that county became a county in 1845. You see, I've learned things. So I go around the county to different towns. Now, this is the second smallest county in the whole state, so we're not talking about, millions of people or hundreds of towns. There's 6 towns. And I went to each one of them. One of them had no businesses I could go to at all, unfortunately. And so that's how I spent one of my days. Well, Valentine's Day, in fact. Roaming around asking for money.
And how much money did you raise?
$202.
Nice.
Which, when people were only giving me $1 or $2 at a time, that's pretty good.
And how much money did you raise last time?
Well, last time I had my mother with me, which is different because she's sort of crazy and she sings and she challenges people. She would go right up to these, like a couple of old men when they'd give her like $1 and she'd say, now listen here, young man. My mom's 76, so she thinks she can talk that way to everybody. And she's known him her whole life. She worked at the bank for a long time. She ran Casey's. She ran the motel. So she knows, everybody knows her. So she'd get right up to him and point out to the street and say, I know how much your truck cost, young man. I know you can give me more than $1 now. Come on. It's the Historical Society. You know, it's worth it. And they'd like, oh, okay, and give her $20. Well, I don't have that. I had the nerve. I would actually have to kind of get myself like, okay, I'm going in here. These people, I'm very different than most people. I had my hair painted pink, of course, but also not everybody knows me. And if they do, they might not necessarily appreciate my views on things. So every time I had to be like, okay, here I go. Take a little bit of my mother with me. But I think I did. I just handed out little flyers. I baked homemade cookies and gave them out. And I mean, everybody loved them, of course. So I won everybody over that way. So I did not make time over the week to buy lots of groceries. So we're just going to eat whatever we got.
Nice.
And my advice, did you say what's my advice?
I already said that, but then you said that.
My advice is just to do that kind of stuff. No, my advice is stop. Oh my God, if I could reach into Facebook or into people's brains and rip out this newest bullshit thing about, well, you know, I'd rather be kind than be right. It's better to be kind than have a discussion about hard-hitting issues. I'd rather be kind and just walk away. Fuck off. Stop telling people to be kind. Everyone is kind in some way. Now, I'm not saying everybody's fully kind. Obviously, there are horrible fucking people in the world. Horrible. Do horrible things. I get that. Majority of people, if I'm having a conversation with you and I disagree with you, and I say, oh, no way, that's, you know, where's your information coming from? Check your sources. This is something different, whatever. I'm not being unkind. I don't know. It drives me insane. It's like if I disagree with you, it isn't unkind. It's not being, like, cruel. Maybe you're just a big fucking baby.
You gotta be cruel to be kind.
Like, if you ask me a question, I'm telling you an answer. Now, I can decide in the moment if telling you the actual truth, knowing it's going to be difficult for you to cope with, even though I think that means you're a big baby, whether I'll do that or not. Because is it worth it? Does it mean anything? Does it matter? Is it relevant? Is it going to move things forward? Does it solve any problem? Probably not. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And then make that decision in the moment. If I tell you the true thing, like if you say to me something about how you're doing something with one of your kids and the whole rest of the world looks at what you're doing and realizes it's effed up, and I'm the only one willing to tell you that, that's a form of kindness. That's not being cruel. That's being kind. That's being, like, honest. If you can't handle the truth, and if you can't handle anything other than people holding your little hand and putting their little arm around your shoulder and babying you for the rest of your whole freaking life, don't tell everybody else they have to be kind. I understand being nice. I just told you, I spent a whole day roaming around a county full of people who don't particularly like me with pink hair, handing out cookies, asking for money for a historical society in a county where I no longer live because I love my mother and I care about the history of the place and that people have that available to them in the future, right? Now, correct. If during that day somebody mentioned something political and I rolled my eyes and made a comment that was in direct opposition to that, that's not being unkind. It's just being real. So, like, there's a line. There is no reason to be cruel and hateful on purpose to hurt people. And there's no reason to be soft and mushy and lie constantly and hide behind this mask of kindness. Because it's not kindness. It's bullshit. It's lying. So, there you go. Stop telling everybody to be kind. Tell everybody to just be real, be good, be decent to each other. We're all human beings. And sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. And cruel in the softest, nicest way. Not cruel like cruel.
Thanks,
but like
Cidtalk.
honest. Just sick of it. I'm sick of people being... Don't know. It's just getting on my nerves.
Well, thank you for that.
That's the kindest... That's the kindest thing I've said all day.
So, I'll be kind and tell you about our websites. Ascully.com, and you can actually... The return of Cidtalk.com is back.
Dun, 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 dun.
You can catch us on Twitter and Facebook. You can catch this podcast on the Google Play Store, the iTunes Music Store. Go to ascully.com/podcast. You can listen to all the podcasts there, download them, or you can subscribe via the RSS on that page. And if you've got an Amazon device, you can say the trigger word, whatever it is, a word, as we like to call it, and then say, listen to the After the Show movie podcast on TuneIn, and the latest episode will begin playing right before your very ears. You can email me at ascully@ascully.com. You can probably email Cidtalk. Now our website is back.
You can always email me. My email never went away.
And I want to say stay classy, Mr. Winston Churchill first and foremost, and Gary Oldman for his excellent portrayal. I am really looking forward to seeing if the Academy awards him with that, because it was excellent.
And I'm going to say think for yourself, because if you don't do it, somebody will do it for you.